Well, I have a lovely guest here today. I'm so excited to dive into this conscious conversation with Shana James. She's a relationship coach for the past 20 years, and she has humbly discovered the causes of disconnection and distrust in relationships, as well as how to build the trust and keep the passion alive. And Shana's also has a master's in psychology as well as DISC and positive intelligence certifications. So she's done the training, she's done the education, and she's also lived in this experience with authentic relating workshops based on her training in communication, mindfulness, psychology, sensuality. She also specializes in helping clients find and create healthy relationships after 40. So that's what brings us to this conversation. Shane and I met a few weeks back, and I just loved all these synchronicities we were having, and one of them particularly around perimenopause and going through menopause and what that's done as women, mothers, partners, and entrepreneurs. And so we're going to explore that today and unscripted and just see where this juicy conversation goes. So welcome, Shayna.
Thank you for having me. And I think, my hope is that our exploration, gives whoever is listening some more freedom and more tools and more love for yourself and just more of all the good stuff and more compassion for yourself as you're navigating this incredibly challenging time.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely echo that. And I wanted to start by asking you, with your relationship practice, with the work you've been doing with people, what has been like the reason that got you into this? Why did you
Mm,
choose to go down this path of all the other things you could have done with your focus?
yeah. Well, my parents' relationship is, it's a hard one for me to witness. There's a lot of fighting and anger and just really not either one of them feeling understood or I think even loved.
Hmm.
They say they always like even as a teenager, I was like, are you sure you guys want to do this? Like I kept asking my mom, do you want to leave? You know? And I never thought I was gonna actually be in a relationship because I was like, okay, if that's what it looks like, I'm not doing that. Then in my 20s, I was part of this conscious community where we decided we were going to relate authentically and we were going to make messes and we would stay and clean them up instead of just bailing on each other.
Hmm.
And that led into creating workshops for people to do the same because we were all finding that there was so much we were learning and we were growing and we were actually having relationships where we felt truly loved and supported instead of like that weird distance or I don't know if I trust you or the resentments that build up. It was like we were actually I don't know, feeling such incredible love and openness. And even with my ex-husband, who I met around that time, like we still have a relationship. We're co-parenting, but we check in on each other and we support each other. So we've managed to transition in a way into a new form of relationship without, needing to make each other wrong or attack
Hmm.
each other or any of that.
And what do you think helped you to get to that place? Like the healing, obviously, we can mirror a lot of what we get from our parents and our upbringing. I think
Yeah,
that sometimes that becomes almost like a go-to response, even if we
totally.
know we don't want that. And so, did you find that you would have like almost automatic responses that were similar to what your parents' dynamic was, and then you had
Yes.
tools to shift it or change it? I'm just curious, like what
Yes.
helped you? And because doesn't I'm assuming maybe it wasn't all like a smooth ride into that relationship, or was it? I'd love to hear more
Yeah.
like what brought you into more awareness around not repeating
Yeah.
the patterns.
Definitely not smooth. And definitely as soon as I got married, and maybe there was some before, but what I really remember is we got married and I had these scripts in my mind of like the roles that I was supposed to play and who
Hmm.
he was supposed to be. And there's a chapter in my book on a sex called You're Not Who You Think You Are, and Neither Is Your Partner, because we think of each other, we have stories about each other, and then we have assumptions about each other, and then we relate to each other in ways where we kind of create the other person and how they respond, right? And so, I'm not saying the other person isn't shouldn't take responsibility for how they're communicating, but
Hmm.
if I am taking responsibility for myself 100% and I realize, oh, if I shame you or if I blame you or if I attack you, you are going to respond in a certain way. And so I remember the day that I realized I had this image go through my mind that there was a dragon inside of me and that
Hmm.
I would like spew fire. And I wasn't the kind that would, my fire was a little more, I don't know if dispersed is the right word, because my ex-husband probably would say it felt like it was coming at him, but I was never like the attacking type. I was more like threatening the end of the relationship. Well, this probably isn't going to work, or, I maybe you just want to be with someone else, or it was like all this emotional chaos.
Yeah.
And then he didn't actually feel like he could share or be heard or understood. So I had this image of this dragon, and then I had an image of me riding the dragon, like inside of my chest and pulling back the reins. And it wasn't until after I got divorced that I made this commitment that I was not actually going to speak. Like if something was heated, I wasn't going to speak until I was going to forward more connection. And I love the Viktor Frankl quote that talks about between stimulus and response, there is a choice. And, that choice determines our lives and our futures. And so realizing that if I could, and I think meditation helps with this, and, you know, all kinds of practices, grounding, nervous system practices help with this,
Hmm.
where if I committed to, I'm only going to contribute to the upward spiral, not the downward spiral, that things would go a lot differently.
Yeah. So it was in your next phase of life post relationship. And then how did you repair that? Like, was it just the distance helped and the separation helped? Because then you could see things in a new perspective.
Yeah.
Did you have to actively like work together to have a better communication process style?
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of it was time and some of it was that we did actively work to repair and apologize. And it was hard. I mean, there were times where like I would apologize for something and he would say like, yeah, thank God you see that now or something. And
Mhm.
the part of me that wanted to be like, yeah, do you see the 20 things that you did that you're not acknowledging or apologizing for? And then I was
Right.
like, okay,
Right.
shut the fuck up. Just like, right? The humility and the one of my favorite books is called Undefended Love. And it's this the idea is like we often defend these parts of our personalities that we don't really even want, but because we feel shame about certain parts of ourselves, we'll attack back or not just breathe and remember like, okay, this is coming from this other person's hurt. And I can actually, I don't want to say be a bigger person. I can be a more loving person, right, in this moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it took humility and it took some time and it took conversations and me letting myself feel the pain or the impact that I caused and not shut him down, right?
Hmm.
Because of that.
Yeah, when I can relate to that experience with wanting to justify and be seen. That's what came
Totally.
out as the core. I was like, why do I want to keep pointing out his flaws or with my
Yes.
partner or point out the reason I said or was feeling angry and not wanting to take full responsibility for it was because of a XYZ that he
Yeah.
did. And while it on a surface level it might seem very logical, like of course that would be upsetting over time at the same point, it doesn't get you where you want to go with having a
Right.
healthy relationship. So that radical responsibility, I think, is like you really have to train yourself to take that, like you said, that separate that between responding to the source of reaction, right? That time
Yes.
frame. So I think that's so important when you take that
Yeah.
space. And have you noticed, you know, I'm not sure how long ago this was when you were having this dynamic, if it
Yeah.
was
It was a lot. I mean, it was a decade ago. But before we go there, I was just curious for you because
Mhm.
you have a lot of wisdom too. Like, is there anything that helped you as you realized, oh, I want to take radical responsibility? And especially in the framing of perimenopause, because we both, before we started recording, we both talked about how there is so much more intensity coming through us and more anger and more, right? Like
Yeah.
more that we have to navigate.
Yeah. Let's get into the how that shifts it all because there's this kind of almost before, during, I'm still kind of in the perimenopause
Yeah, me too.
phase, but I'm, pretty close to menopause. And I noticed a very distinct difference in my responses and personality that was very noticeable. So before I used to be much more of a passive person. Like
Yeah.
I would just take it in. I didn't get actually upset very easily at all. I would get hurt. I would get sad and kind of withdraw. That was more of my response. And then as perimenopause kind of kicked in, I would say in the last 3 years, really, it's like I had just had no bandwidth for that and it would just come out.
Hmm.
And it was at the level of I was doing a lot more deeper work on expressing myself because I
Yeah.
realized how shut down I had been since I'd been helping clients for, 15 plus years then, helping them become more healthy in their body. And
Healthy and
part of
expressive and
being healthy
authentic.
is, yeah, just like being able to move the energy in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And I had taught a process for how to handle anger that I've used that was very helpful for me. It's like
Nice.
we never express anger directly at someone because
Yeah.
it hooks the energy, and then you're just basically in a loop of anger pattern,
Totally. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you, anger is completely valid and it's completely healthy, I think, to have anger and express it.
Yeah.
But I always see it as, right, like it's a diffusement of, okay, something needs to change. This anger is needs to move through me,
Yes.
and to even just angle your alignment away from the person, I feel it
Hmm.
makes all the difference.
Yeah.
But when I was going through perimenopause, I noticed it was like that anger felt so much more directed. And because we've been together for 20 years, we have a history of challenges that were not resolved.
Yes.
And I
Right. So
think
then they all come to the
they
surface.
come to the surface because it's like you really do have to face it. So it's like, how much of this is just my hormones are out of whack? I'm not feeling myself anymore.
Yes.
And also, here's all the stuff I stuffed down. So now I got to look at this in this next phase of my
Yes.
life because I won't be the authentic expression of me. And I do feel like menopause is this portal into
Totally.
really owning who you are here to be.
Yeah. Feels like a
Right?
truing, like an alignment, right? A coming into, oh, yes, this is who I actually am instead of, oh, I just shoved all those parts to the side.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you have less of a filter, right?
Yeah.
To so yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so important that we acknowledge like anger is hot, it's fiery. And if we do direct it at a partner, we can burn down the house of our relationship, right?
yeah.
And so then how do we, like you said, how do we not just direct it at someone? What do we do with it? Do we understand what's beneath it and find ways to stomp around or scream or, smash pillows or dance or move that energy and then have that communication, right? Or if it happens in the moment, how do we maybe pause and even express like, oh my God, I'm feeling all this anger move through me rather than fuck you, expressing anger at someone, right? All these different ways and tools that I think you and I have both been playing with and practicing. And I identified too when I was younger, I didn't know that I got angry at all until I was like 27 years old. I remember the moment driving in my car where I was like, what is this? Oh my God, I'm angry. Because I would just go sad like you and shut it down. And that was then when I started expressing myself and then realizing I was still married, or I wasn't even married at that point. but in the beginning of my marriage, I was giving myself more permission to be expressive and then realizing like, oh, this is not, there's a way to express that
Mm,
creates more connection and there's a way that just starts setting fires, on the on the house.
yeah. Yeah. And I think it can be skewed almost in a way when we hear this idea of like, express yourself, be more, you're like, all your feelings are valid.
Yes,
But
which
you
is true.
also have to consider, yes, exactly. And then, but it's like in how you do it, the
Yes,
how.
yes,
So
is
I'm
huge.
curious to know, like, if you could just take us through like an experience you've had where the fire's out, something happened where you just felt that trigger of emotion, and
Yes.
then what you did, like, what do you
Yeah.
do?
So I have this example in my book where
Hmm.
I was dating a man. It was after my divorce, and he said, I think my kid was maybe 3 or 4. And he was like, in the morning time, that's my meditation time, that's my journaling time, my exercise time. So I wouldn't be available in the morning time, like if we were living together. And I had this moment where I was like, two thoughts. One, totally valid. This is not his kid. He gets to make his life choices, all of that. And two, I rage. I was so mad. And at that point, my kid was such a handful in the mornings
Hmm.
that, I still feel the same way as a parent where like 9 o'clock in the morning rolls around and I'm like, can we be done with this day? Like, we really have to now start the whole day and build on top of this. And so in that moment, I felt the dragon, right? I pulled back on the reins. I said out loud, I'm going to close my eyes for a minute until I can say something that I think is going to be productive and that will help us connect more instead of just, you know, my rage that I'm feeling right now. So I just sat there, I closed my eyes and I said, like, and I think this is one thing that I work with clients a lot, which is we can tend to rush ourselves. Like, I need to have a response, or I need to figure this out, or I need to get calm now. And sometimes it takes something for that primitive brain to actually calm down. So
Totally.
I sat there and I just meditated and breathed. And finally, when I think it probably took a good, I don't know, 5 minutes or so before I even opened my eyes. And I just said, okay, here's what happened for me, And for some people it might take 24 hours or it might take longer. So you can always say, I need to come back to this conversation. I don't know why I'm feeling so hurt or upset right now, but I am.
Hmm.
And then to be able to say, and I talk about a mature honesty in my book where it's going deeper than the surface upsets or accusations into what's really vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then I shared what was vulnerable for me was as a single mom having a really hard time with my kid in the morning. It was really hard for me to imagine now I'm in this partnership and I'm still alone and maybe even more alone because now there's someone here, but I'm still, in this by myself. And that was hard for me. And then we got to have a conversation. We didn't end up together, so we never ended up living together or navigating that dynamic.
Hmm.
But, we had to see, okay, well, is that a deal breaker? Does that mean we couldn't be in a relationship together? Or risking talking about those things instead of waiting until things blow up, right? To talk about them.
Yeah, it's like we have to realize when that fuse goes off, like is this going to be detrimental or is the response going to be actually building a deeper connection?
Yes.
And I think as you were saying, like the brain doesn't always have that reasoning ability. That's something I noticed was more difficult when my hormones were really out of whack before I got them tested and started
Yes.
taking different supplements and herbs and even a little bit of bioidentical hormone for a brief period of time just to
Yeah.
like balance it out, that I didn't care. Like I got to the place, and I want to say this because I think there might be some women listening who are just
Yep.
like, yeah, I get
Fuck
that
it.
that's helpful, but in the moment, like you don't even, I just wonder how many people can relate to this where you just don't even have the filter to breathe for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why you got to do some of the work beforehand, I think, right?
Exactly.
Like to really decide, okay, that didn't go well. Now, how do I want to respond? And then it's like you rise to the occasion of your training is what.
Mhm.
So have a martial arts background, and that is like so important. Like you don't fall to like your best performance day. You basically fall to your basic levels of training. So you
Yes,
have to, I think, in the moments where you are feeling more grounded, more peaceful, more at ease or calm,
exactly.
like collected, to like spend time looking at what you need to do when
Yeah.
that happens. And that helps me a lot because I had to get clear like there was a few things. One is like to notice what happens to myself in those moments. I
Yes.
I don't see straight. Like literally I feel like I've kind of shattered a little bit of the being present in my body. It's like
Yes.
and then not breathing well.
Yep.
So I'm definitely holding breath, right? And then it's like a visceral
Heat.
wronged. Like I've been so
Oh,
wronged.
yes.
And I should preface by saying like I haven't always been this like calm, peaceful. I would definitely express myself in a very forceful, like emotionally intense way with my parents because
Mm,
that was my way to communicate. Like there was a lot of fighting as well in our family. So like I learned to be very quick-tongued and very fierce.
yeah,
And then yet with people who weren't in my immediate like family, it was very easy to just be calm and cool because they
totally.
weren't aggravating that, right?
Yeah.
But then I think being with my partner for 20 something years, like that's family at that core. So
Yes.
you then express more of that. And I had to learn like, oh, okay, this is a programming of we don't talk to each other like this. This doesn't feel good, even though it's like some people are used to fighting, right? Like that's just how that is in the family. We fight when we talk about things.
Yeah.
And what I've had to learn and share with people is that that emotion going through you has to actually interact with your cells in your blood, and it
Mm.
literally poisons you. Like it
Wow.
creates toxicity and acidity,
Yeah.
and an acid state in the body creates disease.
Yeah.
So if you kind of just see it like that, that's when I realized I'm like this like justification of like I'm going to be angry at you and you need to know how I feel truly is poisoning me at first.
Yeah.
And that realization helped me make the shift faster, I
Yes.
feel. Just
Yeah.
knowing that. Not, I mean, I wanted things to be good with us, but at the same point, was it with you, like, is this even meant to be? Like, do we need to just like let this go because it's causing too much
Yes.
friction? But if we can dive into that and heal some of that core wounding,
Totally.
it can be the most beautiful connection that you
So
didn't even
beautiful.
realize you had the potential for.
Yes. And there are very real issues. That's why it's like the anger is pointing to I'm betraying myself, or, I'm not feeling fully alive, or there's a dynamic here where I'm not feeling empowered. Like we're not saying that those things aren't important.
Yeah.
It's more like use the fire to clarify and see what are those things and then be able to communicate them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And that piece around not caring, I mean, I work with that a lot. I would say I'm pretty securely attached. And in the beginning of a relationship, there's some anxious attachment. And then as we move on, there's some avoidant. So there is a part of me, like my partner actually just went through a heart procedure. And there was a part of me that was like, whatever, I'm fine. If he dies, I'm okay. Like, I got this. I'm strong. I'm independent. And I had to just face the part of me that was just crying for days and days and days. And there wasn't even any content there, but I was like, oh, this is the one in me that actually does care. But what came out in the hospital with him was not with him, but like with the staff and stuff. I was kind. I wasn't like mean to them, but I was like asking very pointed questions. And, if he didn't have information, he was like, I got this. I'm in the flow. And I was like, I'm going to go ask when this is going to happen. Like, I need some more information. And bless his soul, we have this kind of relationship where he was like, oh, he was like, I want all of your tears. I want all of it. Like, you don't have to feel like you have to hide it from me.
Mm.
And B was like, oh, I also see the warrior goddess in you, where she's gonna get the information she needs because, she's caring for me. And while he was like, admittedly, there was a part where I was like, I got this. I'm fine. Like, I don't need you to go ask those questions.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, but then I realized you needed for yourself to have the answers to those questions. So I could let you have that while I could stay in my flow and just, trusting and surrendering, right? So there's like this whole dance that we do. And like you said, I think it can be way just deeper and more trust and respect and love than we even realize.
Mm-hmm.
When we can do that with each other, we're not making each other wrong. We're like, oh, what you got going on there? You got some fire. Okay, well, what does the fire want to say, right? And then, oh, you got tears. What do the tears want to say? And if we can welcome that with our partners and really be honest, it's a very different relationship than if we're hiding or proving or holding back or I got to pull it together, all those things.
Yeah. And it sounds like your partner has this conscious awareness of himself and you and the dynamic that, you are creating together of this intimacy and this
Yeah.
communication that is healthy. And so it's like I just would love for you to explore this a little bit and just share about,
Yeah.
how do you know if your partner is even capable and open to going to that level of
Yeah.
intimacy and communication that's open? Because like there were periods where I did not think my partner would even be open to it, and then things just shifted. And literally, even just recently, something shifted overnight.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel like it's an alignment with the planets or something where it's
Yeah.
like we're both very different right now
Hmm.
and open to something that we weren't open to hours ago. Like what
Yeah.
happened? So just like because there's some partners where you're like, okay, they really are not going to meet me where I want to be.
Yeah.
I need to figure out a healthy way to exit,
Exit. Hmm.
or you know what, we're just not working through this well to actually meet each other in this
Yeah.
healthy conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about how you
Yeah. I
how
mean,
you
my stance, I
with
would
people.
say, is if you haven't brought your conscious, mature, vulnerable honesty, you'll never know what your partner is available for
Yeah.
because then your partner will be in reaction to you. And again, while I would say we can each take 100% responsibility, right? It is all mine and it is all my partner's, but
Hmm.
I'm the only one I have control over. And so I really encourage my clients to come from this, here's this vision I have for us and how we want to communicate. And here's the longing I have in my heart. And are you open and willing, even if we don't know how to go in this direction? I mean, I have a couple I'm working with and bless their hearts. They're in a place where they're like, we don't know if we're going to be able to do this anymore, if we're going to be able to stay in a relationship. And they have young kids and it's painful. And they are in a place where they're like, okay, well, how could we still honor and respect each other even as we're going through this and we're disappointed in each other and we're feeling upset and we're feeling like our needs aren't being met? How could we communicate that without that extra layer of shame and blame and attack?
Asking good questions, right? I love that.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said is like this perfect script that someone can adopt and, change to their wording, but like
Yeah.
really just having that written out, I think writing out what you want
Yes.
so that it's clear. Because sometimes when we are emotional and we feel our stuff, we don't say things the way we really want to, right?
Hmm.
So getting clarity on the question you want to ask your partner,
Yeah.
that feels really important.
Yeah, and seeking to understand your partner.
Hmm.
Like if you say something, if my partner says something and I'm like, oof, that rubs me the wrong way, or I don't like that, or I don't understand, one of our reactions could be like that, that internal, if you're listening and you can't see like that sour face or just like, ugh, or, I don't like that, or I'm disgusted even.
Yeah.
And then I can witness that inside myself and be like, okay, their young part or whatever part in me that's tight or contracted, like I don't want that part to drive the bus. I'm going to give the keys to another part and say, ooh, okay, I notice I am like having a reaction to that. Can you help me understand it more? Where's that desire coming from? Or where is that upset coming from? Or, my partner and I were having a conversation on a long road trip, which I find sometimes is a good place for that.
Hmm.
And he said something and I was like, okay, that I did not enjoy hearing. And I was like, okay, well, it sounds like you have, some ideas or stories about how all people are. And I was like, it doesn't really fit for me, but I still want to understand. Like, it felt like he was blaming me or telling me I should be a certain way. I was like, but I still want to understand you. And I notice I'm having a hard time taking it in with that story or that context, right? So again, it's like these ways of breathing and slowing down. And I think, like you said, in with martial arts, when the fire hits, we are going to, what did you say, like kind of go down.
Yeah, it's like the level of your training becomes the baseline. It's like we don't rise to the top level of what we've done. It's we yeah, fall down. Oh, looks like you froze. Are you still
Yeah,
there, Shan?
I can totally hear you, but your video is also frozen too. There we
Okay.
go. It's good. We got
Okay.
it. We're back. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you can have this great intention for how you want to be, but
Yeah.
when the heat strikes, you're gonna fall to like your baseline again, like the lowest common denominator of where the training really
Yeah.
shows, which is yeah, which is why I think you can't just practice this in those moments. It has to be a practice in the good moments too.
Totally. Totally. And I support people to have these conversations in the good moments and to even create agreements about how are we going to talk to each other when we have upsetting things or when we have differences or conflict, what are our commitments to each other so that we are again building this upward spiral and really catching some of those moments in the cycle where we can, start heading down the downward spiral.
Yeah. Yeah, and just noticing how like different dynamics when you have these conversations are more supportive and not like you mentioned on a road trip, right? Like it's just sometimes it's easier to like just be in the flow of talking and you're kind of not facing each other. I
Yeah.
find like going on a walk even to have a conversation can
Yeah.
be very helpful. I know my husband and I have very limited time together right now because we have a daughter with special needs who takes a lot of focus and we're sometimes just like ships in the night and we have intentions to okay, after she goes to bed, we're going to meet and we're
And you're
exhausted and we
exhausted.
realize that was not a good expectation to say that we're going to
Yes.
have quality time together at 9:30, 10 at night when we
Yep.
just really want to go to bed.
Yep.
So knowing like, yeah, where can you find each other in these moments where it's just going to be everyone's more rested, fed, in a good place, right? Like,
Yes.
'cause-
100%.
and also with the dynamic of your shifting moods with like perimenopause, menopause, knowing that sometimes just I think what you said is like calling out, like, I'm feeling this. This is just here, like giving it a name and kind of just giving it some voice
Yeah.
without acting it out, but just
Hmm.
speaking it out, like speaking out, this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how your partner becomes receptive to that is like a good indicator of, okay, we can work together. We have at least a
Right.
shot to work together. But if they're like full wall, nope, I don't want to do this, don't want to talk about, then you've got the responsibility of,
Yeah.
well, what choice do I want to make? Is this acceptable for me?
Yes. And in
Right?
that moment, you can, right, unless somebody is abusive, what I often suggest is if your partner shuts down, you could still stay vulnerable. And I was working with a couple on this too, where it's like, oh, she was like, oh, right. My habit is that if he gets sharp with me, then I immediately go to sharp instead of saying, ooh, ow, that hurt. Can we stay connected here as we're talking about this, right? Even I'm thinking about like, I don't know about you, but I've had pain with sex and, dryness and like just all kinds of things that
Hmm.
I don't want to be experiencing. And they're scary and they're painful and they create blocks in intimacy. And to be able in some of those moments, I think so many of us, especially even strong women in sexual situations, I've talked to so many women who are like, yeah, I'll kind of just try to tolerate it or all those things that you're saying, like when we true up in this perimenopausal phase, and it's like, hell no, I can't, I don't want to anymore. I don't want to turn away from myself. And it's
Yeah.
even more painful now than it was in the past. So I can't ignore it. And then to be able to have those conversations and say, hey, I need a partner. I need us to be on the same team here. Will you figure this out with me
Hmm.
instead of are we on different teams here? And I know you're not getting your needs met, as much as I'm not getting my needs met if things like this are happening. So really the only way we get our needs met is if we come to this together.
Hmm. Yeah, and I want to point out that when these physical symptoms happen, while they're things you can measure with your hormones and levels and things, it is also still very connected to the emotional body.
Yeah.
It's like they can't be separated in the sense that everything happens in the ethereal emotional body before it happens in the
Mm,
physical. So if you're having these physical symptoms, it's like it will only support you to look at the emotional spiritual aspect of, even if not spiritual, at least emotional aspect of
yeah.
that connection. Uh, because I have found that it's always tandem. It's always a both.
Both and.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I do want to say one thing you were mentioning, about the communication with your partner and just sometimes like when they are sharp or when they're hurtful back, it's like that you want to defend yourself, especially if you have a core wound
Yeah.
around, you were ignored, your voice didn't matter, and people were just, you know, sharp with you and hurting you. Like when that happens in the present now, when you're in that hormonal phase of really aligning with like expressing the truth of yourself, you want to defend yourself. You want to like speak up.
Yep.
And I think that the nuance I found in that because I don't want to just sit there and take that when it feels so
No.
awful. So what I created with my husband is this boundary where it's like you can totally feel angry. I like value your sacred anger. Thank you for having it because I think it's
Beautiful.
part of being all the masculine essence in all of us needs like expression of that. It's
Yeah.
feminine too. There's I think a dynamic there. But my boundary has been you need to speak with me when you're ready to speak in a respectful, calmer tone so that I don't then blow up in my trigger and getting mad at that, right? So
Yep.
it's kind of like that. It just the conversation ends, and it's been beautiful because it's
Yes.
it's an expectation that great, I'm gonna go away until we're ready to have a more respectful interaction.
Totally.
And I think there's so much power in walking away and letting the person deal with how that feels. It may not feel good, right? That
Hmm.
may trigger even more stuff. But the
But you can
separation,
lovingly walk away, right? And say,
yeah.
hey, I love you or I care about you and I'm going to take care of me too.
And that saves so much in the way of saying things we don't mean,
Yeah.
creating more hurt because it's just building, right? Like
Yeah.
leaving the situation is always, I feel like, a really important first step.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what you said before about the how,
Hmm.
it's so important to speak up. It is so important to honor yourself and to not let yourself take whatever it is, whether it's, feeling, I don't know, attacked or shamed or blamed. Like it's so important, or even just a desire that isn't happening. It's so important to honor all these parts of ourselves. And we can speak up in a way that creates more connection as opposed to pushes someone away.
That's the nuance. Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
love this. Thank you, Shayna. Thank you for going into this beautiful space of relationships and menopause and, just the dynamic of dealing with the trauma that comes up in our lives as
Mm.
women and parents and partners. Is there any last thing that you want to share that's just on your heart to share with people
Mhm.
listening right now?
I think what I'm attempting to do just vulnerably in this moment of my perimenopause, where I'm feeling more, I describe it as like flattened. It's like there's very little energy in my system often, and I'm getting more overwhelmed easily, and it's like my brain hurts.
Hmm.
Um, just knowing for anyone experiencing, these different symptoms that you're not alone, and right, for the energetic, emotional, physical piece, they can come to you. For the relational piece and the pain around love and sex, they can come to me. And just remembering that there's nothing wrong with us because we're experiencing these things. There are times where I've shamed myself or blamed myself or been like, wow, why am I having such intense symptoms? What did I do wrong? And that it's not about that. It's about our own spiritual journey and our soul curriculum. And I
Mm.
just was listening to a book this morning where it was like talking about learning to listen in the dark, right? Not just listen to our guidance and our support when we're in the light,
Yeah.
but can we still believe when we're in these dark moments? And I was like, oh, that's part of my task right now, or my journey, is to not feel disconnected from spirit just because it feels darker, but go inside maybe even deeper and listen more to myself.
Mm. I love that. Yes. That's so good. Well, how would you like people to connect with you and find out more about, your books and the work you do?
Yeah. Well, on my website, you can go to shanajamescoaching.com, and Shana is Shana.
And we'll have a
If you
link
do,
below.
yeah, okay. So if you do slash, whatever that dash slash slash free, you can get a free copy of my book on a
Okay.
sex. If you go to slash quiz, it'll take you to a quiz where it talks about how to have the best love and sex of your life and what's getting in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, if you want to reach out to me and ask questions, you can email me, Shana at shanajamescoaching.com. And I love talking about this. I love supporting people to feel loved and supported and cherished. And if that's not happening, then, there's something you can do. So don't give up.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for your candid openness and just being you. This is wonderful to have this conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And thanks for your work too. It's important.